you get your macaroni and cheese last night?
Tacos instead. Yeah.
Like breakfast burrito?
No. Last night after
last
the
night,
game, yeah.
okay.
It was a joke. Like, I know y'all missed me for the last 14 hours. You know?
Yeah, always.
You've spoken some this year about not knowing when it's going to happen, but that this team is going to face some adversity. I guess, what are you looking for this weekend in terms of bounce back and continuing what y'all did last night into a SEC weekend against Alabama?
Yeah, I think belief and confidence is the most important asset a player can have. And, the players on the team, can choose to have their own belief system about themselves and each other, and I believe that's really strong with this team. So I want to see that. I saw that last night. I saw that for the two practices leading up to tonight. I want to see it again today in preparation and leave it all out on the field, in another very competitive environment. I believe this is our third, top 12 type series in a row. Obviously there's more coming, and it's just the way that it is in our league, and it's not like this anywhere in college baseball. And so you're going to get bloodied. I said that, months before it happened, and we did, and I think the response to it in terms of the things that the players and the staff can control has been great.
What has worked for the relief pitchers the past couple times out?
Yeah, I think they've been great. I mean, again, if you look at our performance on a national scale and on a conference scale, it's been really good. And I think what I'm pleased with is it's happened quickly in the context of, again, only one guy threw any kind of, and he didn't throw very many, meaningful innings in the league last year. And so for them to just keep attacking what they need to do to get better, and I think last weekend, the one positive was how well the bullpen threw. And last night it was the exact same. 5 scoreless innings, I believe, after, the fifth on, I think, or during the fifth, after they had played it a run. And, I think we're expanding that window of guys that we really can go to in any situation. You love to see it with the young pitchers in the program, with Cooper and Maverick. I think those guys are good, and I think they're going to be really good. I think Williams is going to be good. He is good right now. Kaysen's obviously done great. So at least in my time here, we now have a really good core of freshman pitchers that we feel like can, get better as the season goes along now and be kind of staples, for us. And that's a big deal because, I talked before about building your team 1 year at a time, but, program building is really important to me, and that helps you. And then, in the context of the season, a guy like Connor Benj has really executed what we need him to do well. And on this staff, he kind of has a niche. He did it again last night. And then Jacob Myers, coming along, that pitching will get 3 outs against anybody. And really excited. And he's been busting his tail and working hard and staying positive. And it's good to see the fruits of all those labor. And certainly gives us some options. And I'm excited. It's guys it's okay to get better, here for sure, and they are getting better.
You mentioned the 1 year at a time sort of roster building world that we're all in. What can you sort of take? You mentioned this briefly last night, but what can you sort of take from the Nico situation at Tennessee? Is there any lessons you can learn from that and apply it to baseball? Or?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think SEC baseball is the most competitive venue in all of college sports. I'm obviously biased to that. I'm sure SEC football coaches would tell you the same. I think they live in a different universe with those types of things. It's wild. That's all I could say. I mean, I saw a coach in another sport on this campus right now recruiting another one of the players that's in the portal. Not a baseball player, but in another sport today. So that just tells you the world that we're living in. It's pretty nuts.
When building the program, I recently had an opportunity to sit down with Jack Rucker, and I'm curious, what kind of pride do you take with securing in-state talent to represent this program, and maybe what kind of stood out to Jack for what he can contribute to this program both on and off the diamond?
Yeah, I'll speak in general terms because of NCAA rules. I think there's a lot of really good players in the state of Louisiana. I think our roster reflects that. And it's been one of the best things about coming here. It made a little more sense to me why LSU had been so good historically, because of the number of really good players in the state of Louisiana. And we certainly have a lot on our team, right now. And I think it's 15 or 16. It's a pretty good number. And obviously some key contributors. And, it makes me very happy.
With Jared, he's hit the cover off the ball in non-conference play especially, but things haven't gone quite as well. And when you guys play SEC competition now through 5 weeks, so what's the sort of key to? He's obviously hit SEC pitching before, so what's the key to getting that back as we go to the second half?
Yeah, being himself, continuing to prepare well. Like I mentioned yesterday, I think there's an element to this thing that, he's grown so much, and we've documented that of, eliminating, chasing out of the zone, making contact in the zone, making adjustments. He's done a really good job of that. I look at it and go and there's some really big at-bats in that Mississippi State series. That was just a couple weeks ago, a huge game against Oklahoma. So I see things a little differently. He had a tough weekend at Auburn, and as a lot of guys did. So I don't think you go outside of anything he does or we do as far as preparing. Cares greatly, and he's very focused in his work, and I'm very optimistic that he'll just keep being himself, and I'll be good enough.
With him, Danny, and Derek, have you seen teams pitch them differently as the season's gone along?
Not really, to be honest with you. No.
Is everybody, or just about everybody that pitched last night, are they available for Friday? Not Thursday?
I think if you look at the pitch counts, it probably tells you the needed days off, if that makes sense. The guys with lower are probably available quicker. The guys in the mid-range are, could go either way in the swing of a day type thing. We want to win. It was a big win last night. Team was 27-5, and those add up. They matter, and we've had some good ones. With DBU and Xavier and McNeese. Those are all top 30 RPI teams, and that's a good thing. So it was important to win the game, and really just to play good, and play good against a good team. And then we like how we're set up going into the weekend.
What was the inspiration for changing the top of the lineup?
It was more about yesterday's game, looking at McNeese, and I really have a lot of respect for Coach Hill, LSU guy. He's a great dude, I've gotten to know him as an opposing coach. They'd come out to play us at Arizona, and then just as a former LSU player, it's been a cool part of being the coach here, is getting to know guys that the program means a lot to, and he does a really good job. And if you went back to their Wednesday game last week at Houston, they pitched 10 guys in a 10-inning game, and you could kind of see what they were doing with the order and popping guys in. It was more about making it a little tougher for them to match up, and then maybe setting our lineup in a way, if I needed to pinch hit, it would draw them into doing it in a way that would work for us and not compromise, the game or lose somebody after one at bat, that kind of thing. And so we'll just kind of take it game by game, which is more my nature. And we've fallen into a little bit more of a rhythm, but when you're 31-3, in a dominant, offensive performance it's a long time. That's a lot of games to be playing at a high level. And I do know this, that great teams play near their capability often. And, until this past weekend, that's what this team did. So there hasn't been a need to really overhaul kind of the grouping or the order. But I think, for last night, it was good. And, glad they performed well. But, we need to have good practice today. And I think it's more about how the players executed in the game, as I said, about how I wrote the lineup out.
Is there anything about that, I guess, ordering of the guys in particular that opens up different things for you offensively? Is there the way those guys can complement each other one after another?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And again, that can be on a game-by-game basis or a general thought basis about how it would work in the game. And I think what's great about it is this team with good offensive players with different skill sets, there's more than one way to do it. And we've found kind of a general template that was really good and has executed at a high level and worked at a high level. And then, maybe needing a little adjusting coming off the weekend. But again, I think it's more about just them getting back to executing their plans. And if they execute their plans, I think if one guy hits second one day and hits sixth the next, or hits fifth one day and hits eighth, or hits first one day and hits second, or hits fourth and then hits leadoff, it matters, but I don't think it matters maybe as much, So I'm looking at it to do its best to set the team up to win, as I always say, but I don't think it's as big a deal as maybe as it seems.
Right, is the plan still the same 3 guys in the weekend rotation?
With the early week, we haven't. I don't know what Alabama's rotation is, so I'm not going to comment on what we're going to do this weekend.
And then just from a couple weeks ago, going from a Thursday or from a Friday to a Thursday kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
is there anything that those pitchers learn in terms of just having the less extra day that they can implement?
Yeah, I think it's we always, I always look at it as like what's going to benefit them in the future. So one of the things I'll talk about is when they go to professional baseball. Maybe not in the minor leagues. I think pro teams have gotten a little more conservative with how they use pitchers, but they're going to go from instead of a 7-day off week to eventually a 6 and eventually to a 5. So it's a good rep to be able to do that. And it's one we have to deal with here because ESPN always wants us on TV, and this weekend's Easter, and some of the coaches like playing Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Some don't, because of all this. It was in my mind in terms of the series last weekend that we were going to be rolling back just as it was the weekend before, that we had 8 days, and that's our job to line those things up. I think, we have some real advantages with high-level people. Like, Isaac Trujillo, our trainer, he's awesome. Like, if I've hired you twice, that means you're awesome, and Isaac is awesome. And then Chris you guys always talk to him a lot and talked about him a lot. He does a great job at shifting things and has such really good experience as a former pitcher and player himself of how to navigate that. And then, Coach Eski with the bullpen thing of not just preparing for the game and the team ahead, but what's best for the pitcher. There's elements to all of those things. And, we put a premium on preparing, and that's certainly part of it. I'm very comfortable, like, with all the decisions that are made, that one day is not going to throw us off. Would it be ideal to just say, hey, you play at 6:30 every Friday night? That'd be great. And it's just like, you can get into some awesome rhythm, but that's not how it goes here.
Devin Sheeran, is there a possibility that he returns this season?
He threw a bullpen last Thursday before we left in the morning. And I think it was good. I don't think we're quite there yet for me to be able to finally stamp like that's a possibility. So he's further along maybe than I thought, but we're in the middle of it now. It's like we're not just trying to get guys work. We weren't trying to get guys work last night. We were trying to win a game. And, if it allows, then in terms of his health, and again, for me, it's 2 components. It's a knee injury, so the delivery has to stay intact, so the arm works correctly. The arm has to be in shape. Isaac and Bailey, our assistant trainer, she's done a great job with him specifically. And if he does get back, again, you can laud him for working hard and her and Isaac for helping him along. And, I'd say hopeful but not certain would be what I would say, yeah.
Jared made a really good dig at first base last night.
Yeah.
I know it's kind of a position defensively that not a lot of people really sort of talk about, but
Yeah.
you guys just really grade out
Yeah.
and assess how he plays defensively at first.
Yeah, you can thank the movie Moneyball for that, where Brad Pitt, posing as Billy Bean, talking about Scott Hatteberg, emphatically says his fielding does not matter at first base. But I think it's one of the most undervalued things in baseball is a really good defensive first baseman. And what a blessing we've had, to have Trey Morgan and now Jared. And he's been excellent over there. Made a couple nice plays last night at the dig, and then had a high chopper that was kind of side spin by a right-handed hitter and made a really good play. And he's just advanced a lot in 3 years, and I think he's an excellent defensive first baseman.
So your team, Ron Washington?
What's that?
Is your team Ron Washington then?
How about that? Yeah, there's so many good one-liners. I have only a few movies downloaded on my phone, and Moneyball is one of them. And so you need to pick me up after a tough road series and some inspiration. I'll throw a few of the scenes on there, So
Do you put any stock into peaking at the right time, especially in a long season like baseball? Like last year, you guys peaked towards the end. Peaking at the right time.
Well, I think there's factors involved in that I think the way I explain it to the team is man, we're trying to win every single game. I'm not trying things out just maybe this will work. We're playing and planning and preparing and trying to execute in a way that we win every single game that we play. And the players know that. The season at LSU is dubbed a 56-game playoff. That is the regular season. We are in a 56-game playoff. So what we want to do is win those playoff games as we go along and improve as we're doing it to where you find your best team so then you can be playing well at the end. The difference is we're playing a super regional every single weekend. We're playing a super regional caliber team every single weekend. I mentioned this last night as I'm the RAC, Regional Advisory Committee representative this year for the SEC, and they're going around the 5 conferences in the Southeast, and I'm sitting there talking about 15 teams at this point in time still, so that's nobody has to do that. So you have to kind of keep your eye on the ball of not all the games, but this game or these games. And so I do know that if you survive the gauntlet of that, you can play with a lot of confidence, when you get to postseason play. And, so I think our best baseball is ahead of us. I think, like I said, my goal is to turn any adversity or failure into something that's going to be a positive, and that's what I want to do with the weekend last weekend, which helps us get to peaking at the right time.
Now that Gavin is out for the year, does that change anything the way you look at the bullpen or plan things moving forward?
He hasn't been available, and so really nothing has changed other than, that was electric last night from the 6th inning on of guys being able to get anybody out that are, another layer of what we've done so far to win games. And I think the pitch quality of what they showed will get anybody out. So there really no change because we've been operating, without or the same the whole season.
Where's LeBron in terms of hitters that you guys have seen so far this year?
You're meaning Justin LeBron and not LeBron James. Okay. He's a good player. I actually brought him up I think it was on Bill on the radio last night. He's really athletic. I see an improved player, from a year ago. You could see the physical talent and skills, but he plays with a lot of confidence. Seems like the guy they look to offensively and defensively. Good presence in the field at shortstop, hitting with power. I believe he has 15 home runs, unless he hit one last night. Because I was going through the beginning of the game last night and on his stat line, and it said 15 homers. And really good player, really good player. Like it just seems like that's what we're dealing with every week. It's like, man, Ike Irish needs to get to pro baseball, man. Get rid of that guy. There's one of those on every team, or a couple on 2 or 3 on every team, to be honest with you.
They have iPads in the dugouts now for all the SEC teams. How has that helped you guys?
It's fine. I think it's a balance. Like, information is good, but you have to filter it in a way that helps the player execute their plan. Whether that's your pitcher or your hitter against the other team's pitcher. I feel like we're ahead of the game with some of that stuff analytically. So I haven't felt like it's groundbreaking. I think as my coaches will tell you, how we message things in a way that's productive for the player is important. And in competition, you have to hit that on the money, So Connor's very good with that stuff, so maybe a better question for him. So.
But there are players who you're showing that stuff to on the
at
device.
times. Benj, you're going to be a major league pitcher and all that, but like after that, do you have any desire to coach?
I go back and forth.
Okay, I think you'd be an excellent pitching coach someday, just for the record. So, a better question for the future LSU pitching coach.
Anything specific that you saw in that 4th inning, stringing at bats together that eventually led to runs that you didn't see prior to 4 games?
I thought it was a good inning. As I said, I thought it was one of my favorite innings of the year for a number of different reasons. For me, the ability to hit the ball on a line to the big part of the field with runners on base, 2-out hitting is going to separate you. And I liked that. We went 2 out, nobody on, and then it was great at bat. I think Derek hit a single, and then Jared had a great at bat, and then hit a single that moved guys up. Good at bat by Fry, good at bat by Milam, good at bat by Brown, good at bat by Luis. They just looked very into professional hitting, as I would call it, and it was good to see, because that's the team I know, and they were locked back into just how to execute. I thought would be the way I'd say it, and that can get away from you in the context of a long season, and sometimes I think it's easy to forget the opponent can make it hard. And again, tip of the hat to our opponent last weekend.
Anything else for Coach? Jared mentioned last night that in his 3 years here, you've always had a really good knack and ability to know when to sit him down and kind of have that one-on-one with him and a lot of the other guys. Where do you feel like you developed that in your coaching career, and have you sort of refined it or fine-tuned it over the last handful of years?
Yeah, I think, coaching is trying to help players be successful. And then, the thing that I've learned is the message can be good, but if it's not given or received in the proper context, it's not a good message. And so some guys are different, that I think the days of calling dudes out in front of the team, and what I knew about young people is they don't like to be embarrassed. And so I think that's not the right way to go. I think if you ignore, if like say Connor here, if I want something out of Connor and I don't make it really clear to him what I want, it's unfair of me to expect him to deliver it. So with each player, it's always how do you get across in a way that they can use the information in a meaningful way to make them more successful on the field. And the individual meeting piece is just something I feel like I've learned over time. And then I think there's less distractions. There's no fear of embarrassment or judgment by their peers, or maybe they're letting me or the staff down, and it can just be right here, right now, like this is what we're trying to do. And my dad was a really good coach and a really good communicator, so that's probably the root of it. I worked for, in my opinion, one of the best baseball coaches in all of college baseball in Rich Hill, and I took so many things from him. He was really good at the individual meeting stuff. And then over time, just more about, like, doesn't matter what I know or what I want. It's what the players know and learn and can execute. So you have to deliver it that way.
So you've never done the Augie Garrido video?
I will not say that. Matter of fact, this actually came up yesterday. Ben Napold asked me about something about that. Like Coach Wanaka had given him some insight, maybe being a little bit different at Arizona. And I said, well, why don't you ask him a follow-up question? Am I a better coach today, or was I a better coach then? And he said the same. He said it feels like we're just adjusting to maybe the times a little bit. And again, that's all drama. It's like, if that's what's needed to – I'll use Connor as an example. I kind of took a mound visit in a game. I believe it was against Kansas State, and I kind of got after him a little bit on the mound, and he responded. It's like he needed to get going like now. Like we didn't have time for him to like feel it out. So it was great because it worked, you know what I mean? But it was more about like, hey, we need you to execute right now. And he did, and he delivered, and we won that game against a really good team. And so, again, it's just kind of the root of the same thing. Of like, and I love Augie Garrido, as far as, pay attention to how he was successful, just like I paid attention to Skip before I even knew Skip, and don't try to be them and be myself, and try to take things from the best and apply them in a way that's going to work for these players. And what works for these players is different than it was even a year ago, 2 years ago, or at a different time. So
there was a double steal last night. Was that supposed to be like a hit and run situation? I think Jake got thrown out at second base on the play.
Yeah. Respectfully, I won't answer that, just because it would be a competitive disadvantage if I tipped either way.
All right, all good?
Good question, though.
All right.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks.
I will bring up Connor.